Hey everyone, it's Carson here with Remax. I just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. As well, I wanted to give you guys a quick update on what's been happening so far with the real estate market, where I think things will be in the new year, and hopefully this will be also a little bit reassuring for everyone because I know there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of things going on over the last year and a half with interest rates going up, with the economy kind of changing, and it has definitely been a slower real estate market, at least from my perspective and from some of my colleagues, and just me noticing little details here and there that give me a signal that the real estate market has been slowing down. So, first off, if you are somebody that's looking to um, sell because maybe you are thinking of upgrading or you're thinking about moving for job relocation, whatever the reason may be, I think right now would probably not be the best time still. But that also depends on what you need to do. So if you're just looking to maximize on getting the best price possible, likely you'll see or you'll yield, better results either middle or end of next year or possibly even towards the beginning of 2025, and I'll explain why in a little bit. um, if you're looking to buy, however, this might be your opportunity, and your gap or your window of opportunity might be closing down sooner and sooner, because as I said, there's going to be a shift in the market um, for sellers, and so um, yeah, if you're looking to buy, you may want to take action soon. And if you're somebody that's a landlord, an investor, you have a property, you are either currently um, looking to rent out your place, and you're experiencing some difficulties, I'm gonna say you're not alone, because I do rental management as well, and I have properties that I'm managing and renting out, and there has been some challenges. I've definitely noticed a shift over the last, I would say, between 2 to 3 months. There has been a shift in, I think, supply and demand in the rental market, and so we have seen a decrease in rent. I think there's also been an increase in the supply on the supply side, and that in combination of just seasonally, it's not, fall is sort of a slower market. That has led to sort of the perfect storm to um, create a deceleration in the rental market. And so, if you are a landlord, I would say sit tight. You're just going to have to be a bit patient until the right tenant comes along, just because there's more selection for tenants to choose from. They are now more picky. They can kind of choose. Yours is sort of a dime a dozen everywhere. And as time has progressed, I've noticed that rents have been decreasing just simply because landlords are trying to um, be more competitive with the rent, so they're lowering their rent, and then the other one is coming on the market and they're lowering theirs a little bit by the other one, and then everybody's kind of undercutting everybody a little bit. And so from a tenant's perspective, it's a really good thing, and they're a little bit slower in terms of making a decision. And then of course there's just seasonally, like I said, not as many people are looking to move or relocate during the fall. So you'll just have to be a bit patient, and hopefully, um, if you're looking for a tenant now, hopefully you'll find one soon or in the new year, because we're closing out 2023 very soon. In terms of resale or pre-sale, earlier I did say that I've noticed a lot of signs that the real estate market has been sort of decelerating. So let's just talk a little bit about resale. So for resale, um, I've got some stats here. Let's just change my screen over a little bit to 1 second here. So right here, this is the latest report from December 3rd or December 4th. Sorry, this talks about October, and we'll quickly look over this. And it says here, with 1 month left in 2023, a steady increase in the housing inventories, offering home buyers across Metro Vancouver among the largest selection to choose from since 2021. So you can see there's a lot more inventory to choose from since 2021. And if you've been in Canada or been in BC or Vancouver the last couple of years, you would know that 2022 and even beginning of 2023 has been quite a busy market. There's just been a lot less to choose from ever since rates have started to increase over and over, and I think there's been a lot of uncertainty for buyers, and so that has sort of created the deceleration in activity, and so that's increased, or deceleration from buyers, and that's sort of increased in inventory because properties are not selling as much. You'll see that Real Estate Board reports that residential sales in the region totaled to 1,700 in December of this year, which is a 4.7% increase from the 1,625 sales recorded in the previous year's November. And this was a 33% below the 10-year seasonal average compared to last 10 years sort of thing. So the Real Estate Board, Andrew Liz, said that we've been watching the numbers of active listings in our market increase over the past few months, which is giving buyers more options to choose from than they've been used to seeing over the past couple of years. And when paired with seasonal slowdown in sales, we typically see this time of the year, this increase in supply is creating balanced conditions across Metro Vancouver's housing market. And so statistically, there were 3,369 detached, attached, and apartment properties newly listed for sale in the MLS system in Metro Vancouver in November of this year. And this represents a 9.8% increase compared to the 3,069 properties listed in November of last year. So this was a 2.8% below the 10-year seasonal average. And the total number of properties currently listed, which was again in December 4th, for sale on the MLS system in Metro Vancouver is 10,931, which is a 13.5% increase compared to the November of last year, and this is a 3.7% above the 10-year seasonal average. Let's take a look here. So across all the detached properties, attached properties, and apartments, so the sales to active ratio for November is 16.3% for all the housing types, and then by property type, the ratio for detached homes was 12.7%. For attached homes, which is 19.8%. For attached, in case you're wondering what it means, essentially it's sort of your half duplexes and your townhouses, row homes, that sort of thing. And apartments, they put that into their own category. And the reason why they sort of changed that, it's a long story, but they used to kind of include everything together for apartments, townhouses, everything together, and then recently they've kind of split it up into a separate category. So you see here, analysis of the historical data suggests downwards pressure on home prices occur when the ratio dips below 12% for a sustained period, while home prices often experience upward pressure when it surpasses 20% over several months. So what does sustained period or several months mean? I would say usually between 2 to 3 months, which means if the sales to active ratio continues to stay at 12 or below, below 12%, you'll have downwards pressure on the real estate prices, versus if it's above 20%, it puts upwards pressure on prices. So what is the sales to active ratio? I've talked about this before, but sales to active ratio essentially means for every, let's say, 100 homes that's on the market for sale, how many of those homes actually get sold. So for example, if in December, or let's say November, if there were 100 homes, 100 houses for sale, and only 10 of those houses got sold, which means 90 of those houses didn't get sold, the sales to active ratio would be 10%. So that would put, and if that continues on, for the next couple months, that would mean that there is downwards pressure on pricing. On the flip side, if 100 homes were for sale, and 100 houses for sale, and let's say 25 or 30 of those homes got sold, then that would actually, and that continues for 2 or 3 months for sustained period of time, that would put upwards pressure on the houses or the real estate prices. So same goes for townhouses, same goes for apartments. And so if you see here, it says balanced market conditions typically come with flatter price trends. Flatter market conditions typically come with flatter price trends, and that's what we've been seeing in the market since the summer months. These trends follow a period where prices rose over 7% earlier in the year, and you probably won't find Cyber Monday discounts, but prices have edged lower by a few percent since the summer. And most economists are expecting mortgage rates to fall modestly in 2024, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Market conditions for buyers are arguably the most favorable we've seen in some time in our market. Here we see that the home pricing index composite benchmark price for all residential properties in Metro Vancouver is currently 1.185 million. This represents a 4.9% increase over November of last year, and a 1% decrease compared to October of this year. So compared to the previous month, I know we're in December already, but if we're in November compared to October, it is a 1% decrease. But if you're comparing it to the previous year of November, it's increased by 4.9%. Sales of detached homes in November reached 523, which is a 7% increase from the sales recorded in November of last year. The benchmark price for detached home is 1.982. This represents a 6.8% increase from November of last year, and a 0.9% decrease compared to October of this year, which is the previous month. Sales of apartment homes reached 850 in November of this year, a 0.4% increase compared to the sales in November of last year. And the benchmark price of an apartment home is $762,700. This represents a 6.2% increase from November and a 1% decrease compared to October of last month. And then attached homes in November of 2023 totaled 316, a 12.5% increase compared to 281 home sales in November of last year. And the benchmark price of a townhouse is $1.092600. And this represents a 6.9% increase compared to last year's November, and a 0.7% decrease compared to October. There's more stats down here if you want to kind of dig down into different price and the different little areas. I won't go into that because I will have that available in the description of this video, so you can click onto that. Or if you've been previously watching my newsletters, you'll see I always send out the latest report, which there's a link to as well. So this leads me to talk about what's ahead, because you will see that there's going to be a bit of change, and the reason why I say that is because in October there was a webinar hosted by CIBC, and they had a guest speaker. His name was Benjamin Tal. He's the senior economist of CIBC, and he basically gave a presentation on the current sort of economic outlook, as well as where the prediction for the market is. I was going to create a video for as soon as we watched it, but I opted not to, and the reason why I opted not to was because I wanted to kind of see where things are going, and it seems like his prediction is, it feels like it's going in the direction that he was saying. And so just to quickly summarize here about what he says, and again, if you are interested in watching it, I will leave a link in the description of the video below for you to watch it in detail if you want to. But just quickly look over this. And by the way, these slides are from CIBC. They're not mine, so I don't take any credit for it. I just simply captured it, and I wanted to use this as a visual for you guys to understand what some of the main points of the presentation were. So the first thing is, because we've been increasing interest rates, theoretically we should have gone into recession. And for Canada at least, we haven't really felt, I guess, an economic recession. And why is that? And the reason is, according to Benjamin Tal, is we have actually experienced a recession, a per capita recession. It's just that in terms of the greater scope, we haven't really felt it. And the reason behind that is because he said we have had 1.2 million people immigrate to Canada last year. And so that has sort of helped, I guess, buffer the economy from really going into a big crash. Um, and then the other thing is, um, you'll notice that pre-pandemic, um, or sorry, during the pandemic, we have been saving a lot of money. In fact, we've saved, I think it was about 165 billion dollars of excess savings. Excess savings meaning more than you normally would need for savings. So we've been saving 165 billion dollars in savings, just people in general, and that has sort of been the counterbalance for the Bank of Canada's interest rate increases. So even though interest rate increases have been increasing, we've been able to spend or use our savings to cushion ourselves, and that's what's been sort of protecting the economy again from crashing. However, if you take a look at this chart on the right, you'll see that we have slowly been spending all our savings, and so now people are starting to dip into like credit cards and line of credits, and it's becoming, I guess, unsustainable, which means that the Bank of Canada's interest rate changes has now become more and more effective or more potent when they make those changes, because now you're kind of getting instead of having savings to rely upon, you're sort of in debt, right? So the other thing is now that you'll see that now that we're where we are now, whatever cash people have available, they've been sort of putting that into sort of longer term deposits like GICs or whatnot. And because they've been doing that, that means there's less cash available for spending or being used in the economy, which has then sort of changed the landscape um, of just the overall economy itself in terms of supply and demand. And this next slide here, you'll see the reason for this slide is because Benjamin Tal talked about how the US's interest rate is actually not as effective as Canada, meaning Canada's interest rate is more potent than the US. So for example, if we increase our interest rates by 0.5%, in order to have the same results in the US, the Feds for the US has to increase it by 1% to have the same result as us. And the reason why this is because back in 2008, when the US sustained or had that financial crisis, there was a lot of deleveraging that occurred. However, for Canada, we didn't have that financial crisis, so we weren't really affected as much. And as a result, instead of deleveraging, we actually increased leverage, which means our debt to sort of income ratio increased. We took on more debt, and so whereas in the U.S., people went bankrupt, lots of things happened, and so the sort of debt to income ratio decreased, and so the effectiveness of the interest rate is not as effective when the U.S. increases their rates, because when you have less debt, increasing rates is not as bad versus when you have a lot of debt already, incurred. Having just slight changes already makes it tougher and tougher to make payments for things, right? So you'll see the disparity for the interest rate, the leverage, sorry, and then you can see that for interest rates, you'll see that the effectiveness of the interest rate back in 2019 was relatively similar as US, but now you can see that the effectiveness is a lot more effective. The black line is for Canada than the US in terms of changing interest rates. So what that basically means is even if the US were to increase their interest rates, part of the reason behind that is because their interest rates are not as effective as ours, which means the Bank of Canada has a lot I guess, stronger ability to um, have an effect on our economy with interest rates than the U.S. does on their own. Um, and then next slide here, you'll see that, um, in fact, if you look at inflation out of the some of the countries here, Canada, U.S., U.K., um, you'll see that we're the red line. We have actually had the biggest impact for inflation adjustment compared to the other countries around the world. And that just again goes to say that the Bank of Canada has um, a lot more power, or is more potent when they increase the interest rates for Canadians versus the central banks for other countries. And then if you take a look at here, I think basically he was saying the Bank of Canada, when they're looking at interest rates, I think he was basically trying to hammer around the point that Bank of Canada doesn't care about prices um, of goods in, let's say, the supermarket. What they care about is the interest rate, which is the rate of change of goods in the market. So, for example, if last year, um, you know, eggs were $3 for a dozen, and this year it went to $6, then that's like 100% increase. That would be a big concern for them, and they just want to see the rate of change of the prices of goods to be at 2%, not 5%, not 3%, at 2%. And what they've been strongly saying is, obviously 2% is their target. They will continue to hold rates for longer if necessary, just to try and bring inflation down, and that's their goal, is trying to bring it. They don't care about the past, they only care about the present and the future. And so, but the only way they can kind of make a decision is based on looking at past data. But what their main concern is basically seeing the rate of change for goods and making sure that the rate of change, which is inflation, is at 2%. So the next slide here, you'll see that he talks about during the pandemic, during the last few years, a lot of retail has been able to sort of use the guise of supply chain problems, inflation problems, all those as an excuse. You can see that their gross margin has increased a lot, by over 100%. They've increased their gross margin by so much that they could say, if you walk into a store, you wanted to buy a microwave, or you wanted to buy a washer, a clothes washer, dryer, they could say, we don't have this one in stock because of supply chain problems or whatever it is. But if you're willing to pay more, or you want another model, maybe we can get you another one which is higher in price. And so that has been one of the contributors of inflation. But it seems like now that we are getting our supply chain under control, it's becoming harder and harder for retailers to sort of hide under that guise, and you'll start to know that it's sort of coming down now with things like inflationary, sort of hiding under inflation for supply chain, and we have been controlling our supply chain as well, so that's been helping a lot. This is my favorite slide because he talked about how when the Bank of Canada looks at inflation, they also look at the shelter costs. And when they look at shelter costs, they don't look at things like the real estate, prices of houses changing. What they consider is let's say, us realtors, when we make a sale commission, they also consider rent prices, and they consider mortgage payments, the rate of change in mortgage payments. So what this slide is basically saying is that although they've increased interest rates, that has increased mortgage payments. You can see here by this um, blue line that mortgage interest has increased, and I think he said it increased by 30% since rates have started going up, and that has in effect contributed to inflation itself. So even though they're increasing interest rates to try and combat inflation, that has increased in the shelter category, which has in effect added or contributed to inflation itself. So what they did was they took a look at what if we took out the cost of, or what if we took out the shelter category and look at everything else except the shelter category. And he said if you look at everything else without the shelter category, so excluding um, shelter, you would see that our um, inflationary rate is actually already at 2%. So we're already, you know, we're already where we're at theoretically if you don't think about shelter, because of the fact that increasing interest rates contribute to inflation itself. And then he also said, we have to look at the U.S. and see how the U.S. is comparing to us to get a gauge of where things are going. And the funny thing is, U.S. does not look at shelter costs the same way as we do for looking at inflation. So what the U.S. looks at is they don't look at commissions, they don't look at mortgage payments, but they look at rents. So rent is how they sort of, I guess, use that as their gauge for shelter costs. And you will see that the rent has started to decrease, and so that's a signal for them that, I guess, things are easing up, and so likely they will maybe start sometime in the future to decrease interest rates. And that sort of leads me to the next part, which is jobs. And he was just talking about how jobs was starting to ease up a bit in terms of job vacancies and the workforce, and also less and less people are starting to quit. I think just before, when the job market was so hot, a lot of businesses had to increase the labor, or sorry, the wages, just to attract more people or talent to come to their company. And then as a result, those people would quit, would jump from company to company to try and find a better job. But now that I think there's less hiring and maybe even more people being let go, more people are starting to stay or retain in their position rather than leaving, possibly in fear of they might lose their job and they might not be able to find another one, or whatever it may be. But it's sort of stabilizing is basically what he's saying. Again, you can see here Canadian unemployment and job vacancy rates are starting to normalize, and there's less and less bargaining power now for workers, and the quit ratio is starting to decrease as well. And then so basically by 2025 or 2026, about 57% of mortgages will be up for renewal, or according to him, the term he used was reset, because a lot of the mortgages were taken out during 2020 or 2021. And so what he's trying to say here is that if we don't decrease the rates, or if we continue to increase rates, or we continue to maintain sustained rates for such a long duration, by 2025 to 2026, there will be a huge shock to the economy, which will likely lead to a major recession. And so it's not really sustainable, and likely the Bank of Canada knows this, and likely they will also be adjusting rates from now, or not from now, sorry, from the middle of next year. And I think he kind of said somewhere between June to July, they will likely start to slowly ease interest rates, which is why in the beginning of this video I was saying how if you're looking to sell, right now may not be the best time unless you have a very, very strong need to sell, you have no choice, then, you have to sell, you have to sell. But if you are somebody who can wait, you're in a position that, okay, I'm not really in a rush to sell, then you may want to wait until interest rates start lowering, because when interest rates start lowering, you can be sure a lot of buyers will be entering into the market. And a lot of buyers have, some of them by choice have been waiting, some of them have no choice just simply because they don't qualify for a mortgage, or they qualify for a lot less, just simply because the way our mortgage stress test works, you don't qualify at the current interest rate. You have to qualify at least 2% above the current rates, just to make sure, if rates go up even higher, that you can still, afford to make the payments. And unfortunately, it's a little silly because we're at such a historically high rate. Well, yeah, I guess we're not that high if you look back, many years ago, but over the last 10-15 years, I think it has been quite high, at least a lot higher than what we've been used to. And so that stress test may or may not be helpful. I probably not. I think it's less helpful than it should be. But at any rate, a lot of buyers have exited the market, or they've been just forced to the sidelines. And so once rates start coming down, especially the last 6 to 9 months, or even last year, everybody's been focused on interest rates. Everybody's attention has been on the interest rates, on the economy, on stock market, on recession, on supply and demand. I'm sure once interest rates starts coming down, people's outlook is more optimistic. You will see a big shift in activity in the real estate market, and that's why I'm saying, if you're a buyer and you've been looking to buy and you've been waiting for some time, your window of opportunity likely is starting to slowly to close down. And if you wait until, you know, middle of next year, or maybe even further down the line, you may be caught, with your pants down, and by the time you realize it, it may be too late. And so I would say, if you're looking to buy, I would encourage you to really look and assess at your situation. And if it may feel like prices haven't really come down a lot, or whatnot. And obviously, a lot of people look at things like your mortgage payment. Unfortunately, it's not really to do with more so the real estate prices. It's more so to do with the mortgage payments. That has really made a big impact on a lot of people. If you're looking to sell, like I said, maybe hold on tight if you can. And if you're a landlord looking for investment, or if you already have a property, again, I would say you'd have to sit tight. I have had a lot more landlords come to me over the last couple of months for rental, just simply because maybe they purchased a pre-sale and they're closing on it soon, or they just got the keys and they're looking to rent out. And it has been a bit of a struggle, I have to say, as tenants are, number one, they're not very consistent. They're all over the place. They're constantly shopping around, and that's normal. Tenants do that anyways, but more so now because they just have that ability to do so, versus before, tenants would be like, okay, because it was so tight, the rental market was so tight, there was nothing available, or not nothing, but very little available, that if they found something, they'd be like, okay, I'm interested, I want to apply right away. But now they're kind of like, I'm gonna look at this first, I'm gonna think about it. And then, of course, rental rates have gone up a lot. Make no mistake, it's gone up a lot over compared to 2 or 3 years ago. It's gone up, a lot. And so tenants obviously people's wages haven't gone up that much either. And so tenants are more picky. They're more choosy when they're looking at properties. They're almost like they're shopping for a home, because I guess they have to stretch every dollar themselves, make their dollar more accessible. So they're considering everything. Which direction? Where's the view? Is there a balcony? Is everything new? Is everything being fixed? So many things. Is there AC? There's so many things they shop for almost as if they're gonna be living there for long term, which I don't think that's the main reason, but it's just really their sort of way to try and maximize their dollar for how much they're gonna be paying in rent, sort of thing. And so I think I've said everything I needed to say. Hopefully, this is more encouraging. I think the Benjamin Tal, the senior economist at CIBC, basically ended off saying that everything we're experiencing now is only temporary. Eventually, there will be a shift, and in fact, he says that the disparity between sort of our supply and demand is so great, and of course we've had so much immigration and we continue to have more immigration come into Canada, that likely over the next decade real estate the real estate market will be very, very busy, especially for us. And so if you're either a seller or buyer or a landlord, um, take that into consideration for your plans for the next couple of years. Again, like I said, if you're a seller, maybe wait. But on the flip side, if you're a seller, you're thinking of upsizing, that may or may not be an advantage for you, because you may sell in a market that's extremely crazy busy and you may get a really, really good price. But then when you have to go to buy, you're in the same boat. And likely, prices will be increasing month over month, versus sort of stabilizing or slightly decreasing. So it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. But then at the same time, maybe the payments will be more affordable. Um, how much more affordable, I don't know, because I don't know how much they're going to decrease the rates. What I do know is they probably won't do major decreases unless we see some sort of huge recession uh, in 2024. Um, if not, I think Benjamin Tal did say also the fundamentals of our economy and everything is very, very strong. So it's unlikely we're going to experience a huge recession, which means um, they'll just keep rates, elevated for the next 6 months, 6 to 7 months, and then as we see disinflation or inflation coming down, um, they'll probably start slowly easing the rates. How much more they'll ease the rates, I think likely it'll be somewhere between where we are now and before the pandemic started, which was somewhere between 2%. We're at like 5 or whatnot, so probably somewhere halfway there. So don't expect huge decreases like 1%, half a percent decreases, might be a quarter of a percent every every quarter, every while, but unlikely it's going to be major decreases. So you're going to have to kind of balance things out. And yeah, if you want to talk more about your plans for the next 6 months or 3 months, or you want me to keep an eye out for something for you, feel free to reach out, let me know. If not, I wish you guys a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Hope you guys get to spend some time with your loved ones. If you're anxious, don't be. Things will be okay. I have a feeling it will. I'm noticing some signs where things are also easing up. And I don't believe that we're going to be where we are in this low market for too much longer. I've been in real estate long enough to sort of know now that it's sort of the pent up demand builds up and builds up and builds up. And it's not like people don't want to buy, and it's not like sellers don't want to sell, but things have to kind of match up. Sometimes everybody has certain reasons or whatnot that they need to sort of match, and it's sort of like a puzzle, right? And if it doesn't click or it doesn't match, then it just doesn't work. And things, with the way things are, that's with interest rates being so high, payments being so high, all the things are not lining up just yet, but I have a feeling that things will start to slowly kind of mesh in, and it will start to get a lot better. And you guys will just have to be a bit patient. For me personally, for Jennifer and I personally, that's sort of what we're thinking of doing too. Is we've been planning. We have some investment properties. Likely we won't be selling just yet, but once those are not properties that we need to sell in order to buy something. So likely we're going to be waiting until rates start coming down again, the market's busy again, and we can sell at that point. And in fact, we've been sort of thinking about planning about picking up some more while the market is sort of slower, because we can leverage this opportunity to buy in at a lower price, and then maybe again once the market is busier, we can offload those and hopefully get a good return on that. Yeah, we have some properties coming up too that are going to be rentals, and we're not completely looking forward to it because we know that the rental market has been a bit slower and the rental rates have started to come down, but that's just a short-term pain for long-term gain, because we know that down the road, once the real estate starts to get busier and the prices start to come up again, whatever losses we're experiencing now, whatever negative cash flow we're going through now, it will more than make up for down the road. So yeah, hopefully this video was helpful and informative. I'm sorry if there were lots of ums and buts and whatnot. I just have been quite occupied and I don't have the time to edit the video, so I'm just gonna record this raw and say what I have to say on my mind and on my notes. And yeah, thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked it, you think it was helpful, please like and think about subscribing as well, because that really helps me. It really helps encourage me to make more of these videos, and it tells me that people are watching, people like it, and if that's the case, then I'll continue making more. See you guys in the next one. Bye.